A good afternoon to everybody joining us today with regards to In Conversation, our Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday sessions specifically. And each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we've got a different topic where with a different speaker, where we cover things that we obviously need to be covering during the lockdown period. Today, we've got In Conversation with Dr. Stoffel. Doctor, a very good welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Neil, and thank you for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. It's nice to be able to pick your brain and get some expertise for everybody that's watching today as well. Before we start off, I'm just going to ask everybody, please tell us where you're from, which city are you joining from. I see quite a few people already commenting, telling us where they're from and saying hello. Hendrik is saying hello from Johannesburg. Marencha, actually my mother, joining in from Port Elizabeth. Hello, Mom. Marcel de Toy from the Friendly City, which is Port Elizabeth. I guess Johannesburg must be the root city then, where I'm from. If he is friendly, but I think everybody's friendly all over. Another hello coming in from here as well. Another one from Johannesburg. So quite a few people joining us at the moment. Please do comment, join, and do say hello where you're from. And today's an open session. Rochelle also saying hello from PE. Today's an open session. You're more than welcome to ask questions. You're more than welcome to make any suggestions. Dr. Stoffel is going to talk about specifically what everybody's going through during the lockdown period. You can ask advice. You can ask questions. You can also interact and bring up your suggestions specifically throughout this whole session this afternoon. Take note that we've got these sessions will run into May. This coming Friday, we've got Tonya Kuhn. Sorry, she is a celebrity attorney. Then next week, Monday, you've got myself only talking specifically about marketing and social media, what I've learned over the past few years and how we do it at Oracle Media. Then obviously next week, Wednesday, we've got the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber, Nomkita, that's coming on board. And don't forget, Nomkita and the team at the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber is running an initiative for the Ubuntu Fund. And if you'd like to get a hold of them and speak to them about the Ubuntu Fund, please do so. It's jock at nmbbusinesschamber.co.za, and you can get a hold of them and also assist with regards to that. So we're going to start today, and we've obviously got a few questions we're going to start off with. You can add in your questions for Dr. Stoffel as well. We're covering the topic of being locked down and, obviously having an effect on your mental capabilities or capacity at this stage. But before we get there, I'd just like to introduce Dr. Stoffel and give you some background on that. And I've made it bigger so I don't get his title wrong. This time we were practicing it earlier, and he became a completely different doctor around there. So before we start, in conversation with Dr. Stoffel Schrobler, is a psychiatrist and mental health advisor to Mindful Revolution. Dr. Stoffel's special interest in workplace mental health, leading and developing Mindful Revolution well-being at work programs to support employees in workplace to stay mentally healthy, as well as educating them about mental illness. We are going to be talking to Dr. Stoffel now, and we will be providing his contact details throughout this whole session. So please do, if there's any questions you'd like to ask, please do so. So, Doctor, obviously, that's a mouthful in itself, going through what you all do, and it's an important part, especially that what we're playing into now. Do you have any advice for people as to how to stay mentally healthy and in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic during the lockdown? Because it's obviously very difficult.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Wilhelm. I see Wilhelm also saying hello from somewhere. The advice I'm going to give initially is quite generic, and I'm assuming that a lot of people that's actually in this session are also working from home. So I think it's also something that we need to look at. But firstly, to to stay mentally healthy, there's a number of things one can do. The first one is connecting with each other. What we're doing today is, I met you for the first time. Actually, there's something meaningful that happened today. So we are social beings by nature. I hope you don't mind it, but you said you're an extrovert. And I'm an introvert, and it makes us different. But as much as an extrovert needs social connection, so does an introvert. So maintaining relationships with the people close to you, with your friends, your family, is extremely important. And by now, I'm hoping that most people have figured out how to connect with each other in this space. Second thing is, get your facts right. In as much as I'm suggesting that people should limit their social media intake, and again, I'm cognizant that this forum is probably filled with people whose job is social media. It does create anxiety as well, to be bombarded 24/7 with all this information, frequently bad news, changing information. So I suggest to people and lay people out there to limit the amount of social media exposure that you have, especially if it's making you anxious. And then getting the facts right. I really get so frustrated and irritated if I see fake news and people putting things on that is just so obviously wrong. So if you're going to check social media and you're going to check sources, make sure you have the right sources. And I would very specifically like to encourage people to look at the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, NICD. Their website has relevant, up-to-date information. So, and if you're wondering whether something is fake news or not, you're welcome to email it to me and ask the question. Then also important and probably quite difficult during this time is to look after your physical well-being. It has a big impact on how you feel emotionally and mentally. So at times like these, we easily fall into unhealthy patterns, and that in turn can make you feel worse. So we need to try and eat healthy, well-balanced diets. We need to try and get that little bit of exercise in, inside, outside, wherever you have space, and obviously try to avoid stimulants like smoking. People are, I suppose, can easily fall into the trap of smoking more, and even using alcohol. And then looking after your sleep. Again, I've actually noticed that my sleeping pattern is a bit disrupted lately. So the more you worry, the more it affects your sleeping pattern. So and a good quality sleep makes you feel mentally and physically better. There's a principle that they call.
Doctor, I've actually noticed from my side that I used to, if I go to bed, I can close my eyes and in seconds I'll be asleep. Where now I go to bed and for half an hour, 40 minutes, I'm lying there awake, struggling to fall asleep as well. So is this part of the whole lockdown thing, being in your house, not being able to go out of it, but with the stress as well?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with it. It has to do with our daily routines, that what we're used to doing. So we're used to having a specific routine. You get up in the morning, you do certain things before you commute to work, you arrive at work, you finish your workday. At the end of the workday, there's a routine, commuting home, getting home. Everybody has their own routine, and then you go to bed, and suddenly everybody's routines are all over the place, and they have to stay at home. So I can give you some advice as to looking at what we call sleep hygiene principles, if you would like to. So that's limiting, if you're going to, I'm assuming not, but if you're going to take naps, to limit it at least to one nap a day, not more than 30 minutes. Like I mentioned, avoid stimulants in the afternoon, like especially in the evening, like caffeine and nicotine. And while alcohol helps people, if you have any wine left, but whilst it helps people to fall asleep, in the second part of the night, it can actually disrupt your sleeping pattern and cause you to start waking up. So alcohol is not a good way to fall asleep. Exercising promotes good quality of sleep. taking taking a meal too late in the evening, a big meal, or taking certain types of food. They found that it can be disruptive to sleep. For example, heavy or rich foods, fatty foods, fatty or fried meals, very spicy dishes, that can disrupt your sleeping pattern. And then it's important. Yeah,
those type of foods now. You're at home, you want to eat all the unhealthy stuff. I had it myself, where I think I bought so many chocolates before the lockdown to keep me throughout the whole period, and I ate all of it in my first week, which most people did. So I think it's definitely one of those things. And I see Hendrik also saying, I noticed that our days are getting shorter, getting up a little later and going to bed a tad earlier. Also a part of the lockdown period. And Vahalem saying, one tend to get frustrated in times like this. And you're saying exercise might help. Any specific exercise you recommend?
So regarding the first question, what I've noticed with the teenagers in my house is that they're getting up later and going to sleep later. So we're actually making an effort to get them into healthier routines as well. And it's interesting that some people might get up later. That actually makes a lot of sense to me, and that you're going to go to bed a little bit earlier. And then again, if you find that your quality of sleep is not good, maybe it's useful just to remind you of what used to be your pattern, and try and go into the old pattern that or the previous pattern that actually worked. If it didn't work, don't go there. If your sleep is, people underestimate the benefits of sleep. There's so many research, or so much research being done on actually that it can prevent Alzheimer's, and they've found that CEOs that sleep very little, that there's an association with that and Alzheimer's later in life. So in a lay manner, I can say that sleep helps you get rid of toxins in your brain specifically. So sleep is quite important, and if you find that your sleeping pattern has altered, try and think of what it used to be, and try and go back to that way. The second question was a very important question, very nice question. What was the second question that you asked? I distracted myself.
Helen. I'll bring it up again. It says one tend to get frustrated in times like this, and you're saying exercise might help. Any specific exercise you can recommend?
I suppose that the fact that we're in lockdown is going to limit the type of exercise you're going to be able to do. But the good news is that around 30 minutes of aerobic exercise is actually enough. So any type of aerobic exercise, whether it's skipping or whatever. I've had a hip replacement, so I can't go to the gym and cycle anymore, but I do still keep active. And now actually I'm doing a little bit more resistance training with resistant bands and core muscle training. So Willem, I don't have a specific answer for you. At least 30 minutes of exercise every day, if you can 5 times a week, would be brilliant, and it would definitely improve your sleeping pattern. Also, just be mindful that don't exercise in the evening. Don't try and exercise and then go to sleep. So give yourself some time to switch off after the exercise, because the exercise is going to stimulate your body, and you're going to have certain hormones flushing through your body. So the endorphins are a good thing, but it's also going to activate you. So not too close to your sleeping time.
No, definitely not. Then also a second question coming in here. Do you have any tips for people who now find themselves working from home? And, I think that most people have in some form or way started working from home or doing training or anything like that. What would you suggest for a person working from home at the moment?
That's actually something that fascinates me, because most of my family suddenly finds themselves working from home, like I'm sure most of you do. And again, connection is very important. We're used to a very busy routine. So you used to going to work, and then maybe lots of people around you, and suddenly you're surrounded by very few people, and the transition was very abruptly. So people think that loneliness, that you can become lonely because of lack of people, of somebody that you can talk to. And the fact of the matter is, loneliness is actually a lack of meaningful connection. So it's very, very important to stay connected to friends, to family, to colleagues specifically. Then I suggest to people, I've been doing quite a bit of reading as to how to stay calm in the workplace, is staying calm. And it sounds very simple, but it's not as simple as staying calm. But you have to manage your stress and your worry. And for people with an anxiety disorder, it's actually quite difficult. And again, by nature, I tend to share and I overshare. So and I tell people about my own anxiety disorder as a psychiatrist, because I feel that if we as mental health care professionals can't share our mental illnesses, then how do you destigmatize? So I'm very comfortable talking about my anxiety disorder. And I suffer from what they call generalized anxiety disorder, which means that I worry about the future, and which you probably won't believe, social anxiety disorder. I find talking in front of people quite difficult because I have social anxiety disorder. It doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means it's more difficult for that than for the extrovert. So if you're in
front of a few hundred people today.
I know, and I do a lot of public speaking. So for all the people with social anxiety disorder out there, the fact that you have social anxiety disorder doesn't mean you can't. It just means it's a little bit more difficult. So
I think this actually links to what you're discussing. Calvin asking here, Dr. Stoffel, for people who suffer with anxiety, any advice on how to manage this? So that links in quite nicely with what you're talking about now.
Yeah. So firstly, let's accept that what we're going through is by no means normal, and that it's anxiety provoking, and that it is going to cause anxiety. If you have an anxiety disorder, it's going to create more anxiety. So depending on what your anxiety disorder is, or mental illness for that matter is, it's probably going to exacerbate it. So if you tend to be a worrier like myself, we experience a kind of a sense of loss of control, and we need to remind ourselves that part of what we're going through is actually normal, and that we're supposed to be. Well, there's a part of us that is going to experience this as dangerous, and we're going to feel anxious. So, how do you control anxiety? Firstly, by being mindful. Mindfulness is as a proven way. Mindful meditation, relaxation exercises are proven ways of bringing yourself back into the moment, bringing yourself back from being in the future to being into the now, being into the present. And there's good evidence to say that this helps. So lots of online resources in this regard. If meditation is not your thing, then relaxation exercise. And again, the physiology behind this is very, very important. It brings you out of what we call the sympathetic response into the parasympathetic response. Then in terms of worrying thoughts, being aware, just starting to be aware of your thoughts and accepting that thoughts are just thoughts. And again, if you're by nature somebody who suffers from anxiety, or that you worry and you haven't had therapy in this regard, it might sound a bit alien to think that you have to think about your thinking, but that's exactly what you need to do, especially when it comes to worrying. And then kind of looking at what you are worrying about, sometimes going so far as to write it down, and then deciding what is realistic. People with anxiety disorders tend to make what we call thinking mistakes. So a person with an anxiety disorder, like generalized anxiety disorder, might catastrophize. They might always think the worst is about to happen. So ask yourself, okay, well, what are those scenarios? And then working through them one by one meticulously. And obviously, if your anxiety goes into the realm of starting to get panic attacks, then you need to seek help. In terms of quality of life, it's very important to seek help, and either from psychologists. Psychiatrists are way down the line in terms of getting help from, and they're difficult to access as well. So starting with your GP or a psychologist, I would actually recommend going to psychologist first with anxiety, and then maybe to your GP to seek help. I'm going to get sidetracked there, so you need to stop me here.
But it is something that you can manage. I look at myself. I had an incident last year overseas where I was actually abducted from the street and held in a room for a period until that came to an end. So being in lockdown for me, it's also brought up a lot of memories like that where I'm restricted and I can't go anywhere, and how I actually deal with that through life now. By looking at my mindset and going, okay, this is what's happening, coming to peace with it, and trying to deal with that actual space. That's what I do. I think obviously the person needs to see what works for them. Another question here, Dr. Stoffel, Tanya asking, why do some people go to bed early and rise early and others are night owls? Can one change this pattern? She says she's asking for a friend.
Tanya, probably not. I know that sports people, when they go on tour, the good sports physicians have informed me that they actually look at early risers and late risers, and they don't mix them in the same room, because it tends to be a pattern that you find helps you or kind of keeps up with you through life. So can you change it? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think it's part of your natural rhythm as well.
I think it's also connected to exercise. If I look at before the lockdown, and this is just on my side, I used to get up every single morning at 4:30 and then go and swim. And now the lockdown, I struggle to get up at 6 o'clock. When my alarm goes off at 6, even though I'm still doing some exercise at home, I am struggling to wake up. Where at 4:30, my alarm went off, I got up, got in the car, went to the gym and swam. And there was no issues there specifically. So it's weird how all of this is affecting each person differently.
Yeah. And the exercise, by the way, helps for managing anxiety as well, bringing your stress levels down. By the way, I'm part of here in Port Elizabeth of the swimming community, and they're all very frustrated. So I feel for you. I'm a swimmer myself, and I miss getting into the swimming pool.
Me too. That's what I actually said to Jane Stevenson the other day. I miss waking up every single morning and just going and swimming. It was my routine and so forth. But you look, in 2 weeks we'll be hopefully back at it and in distancing at least and swimming.
Yeah.
Vahalem saying
Sorry, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, Doctor. He says, thanks. We do some exercises. Just wondering about any specifics. The aerobics does sound interesting. We'll give it a try. Vahalem, please do and record a video and tag us so we can see if you're doing this.
Just coming back, I was thinking of something now, Neil, and the question was working at home and how do we manage working at home, and this little piece of advice in terms of boundaries, actually something that once lockdown is finished and you go back to work, it's maybe also something to keep in mind. But I think it's especially difficult at the moment for people to keep that work-life balance going. The boundaries between life and work has become blurred, and people have to manage the work on the one hand, they have to manage the family on the other hand, especially people who have, or specifically people who have families and children and so on. And I think it can be quite difficult. So again, from the reading that I've been doing, is they suggest that you don't work from your bedroom, and if you have no choice, make a very clear boundary between your bed and the space where you work. And an interesting piece of advice I was reading is design your day in advance according to your previous routine. So get up at the same time, have breakfast, use your would-be commute, the time that you were going to commute, to do something that you enjoy, like playing Candy Crush, if that's your thing, or listening to music, or whatever the case may be, and then say, okay, now I'm at work, and then you start to work. And in the evening, the same routine. Have a very specific set time where you say, okay, now the laptop closed, not going to check the emails on my phone anymore, and now is me time, and I'm not going to work anymore. So I think those boundaries between work and not working is actually quite important, especially so if you're working from home.
For those just joining us at the moment, Dr. Stoffel in Conversation, which is on every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Obviously, today's speaker being Dr. Stoffel, and looking at your mindset around the lockdown period as well. It's open for questions and also your thoughts in the comment section. This coming Friday, we'll have celebrity attorney Tanya Kun, who's going to be talking to us at 3 o'clock. Then obviously continuing next week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 o'clock with the different speakers. If I can ask everybody that's joining us at the moment, please do comment in the comment box. Tell us what you think about today's session. Give us your feedback. And please also do like the actual video so that it can go more viral. So if there's someone that is in need of the advice being shared by Dr. Stoffel today, they'll be able to see it on Facebook. So please do like, share, and then comment in the comment section. I'm just going to another comment that came in from Tanya. She says, the biggest problem I'm facing is trying to get my mind into task at hard work, working from home. The pressure is there to deliver, but we're almost in no one rephases where you start and so forth. And I think a lot of people like that. How do you get into that mindset of starting to work specifically when you're at home, and the pressure as well?
It's actually something that I read up on today, Tanya, is that it's because of those blurring boundaries and depending on your personality as well, people start being overproductive, and you need to look at that balance also. So some people lose their drive, some people become lethargic, and their productivity nosedives, whereas other people actually become overproductive, and they're constantly online. They're doing more than they should. And the bottom line is, nobody's ever 8 hours at their desk at work. You get up, you take breaks, you talk to people, you do different things. There's variety in your day. So staying at home, you also need to think about that and say, well, I'm allowed to actually get up and do something and walk around and be offline for a couple of minutes, because that's what I would suggest. Think about your days, how it used to be, and try in a sense to mimic that. And
at your home as well, similar to what you would do at work. Because I think at home you go and sit down and you're stuck in that space, and you don't go and talk to people because there might not be someone to talk to, or it's family members and they're all doing their own work as well. I see Christopher saying here, loving all of the advice. This has been very helpful as well. Thank you. Suzette May saying self-discipline is key at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. And it makes me think what you said just now about you go and sit through in front of your desk, and I find that's my personality. The work takes up my mind, and then my mind stays in that space, and it's very difficult for me. And I'm not working from home at the moment, but the days that I am at home, I tend to work weekends as well. Once I'm in that workspace in my head, it's very difficult to remove myself from that. And self-discipline here is very important in terms of actually taking it to the other extreme, where we tend to associate self-discipline with self-discipline, disciplining yourself, being hard on yourself. Actually, there's an other side to this coin, is self-discipline, looking after yourself in a more kind way, in a more compassionate way, but looking after yourself, making sure you're actually caring for yourself.
And doing that specifically during the lockdown period. Another question here, you recently published an article on LinkedIn referring to so-called cabin fever, as a burn-in as opposed to burn-out. Can you tell us something about your thoughts in this regard? So burn-in and burn-out.
Okay, so that's my thing. I've published quite a bit on burnout in especially in the medical profession. And the first day of lockdown, I was driving to work, and I wondered how this is going to affect people. And my thoughts started taking me to what's called cabin fever, and we're not familiar with cabin fever. It's something that happens in the northern hemispheres in the winter months. And I suddenly thought about burnout, and I came up with the term burn-in. Which doesn't really exist. It's my term for what happens to the person being cooped up at home all the time. So we all our normal ways of dealing with stress has been taken away from us very suddenly. So going to the gym, going to have coffee with a friend, going shopping. This is suddenly been taken away. So we have to find new ways of coping. And suddenly we're inside all the time. So cabin fever is said to be symptoms like restlessness, lethargy, feeling tired all the time, sadness, trouble concentrating, frequent napping, can't cope with stress. So this is on the one hand. Burnout, on the other hand, is the point, and there's good research on burnout, the point at which important, meaningful, and challenging work becomes unpleasant, unfulfilling, and meaningless. They say that energy turns to exhaustion, engagement, being engaged in your environment, turns to cynicism, and efficacy is replaced by ineffectiveness. And so this was just me kind of going into a philosophical mode and wondering what would the effect be, and could there be something like burn-in or cabin fever? Cabin fever is not a recognized term. So I speculated that we can combine the symptoms of burnout with symptoms associated with social isolation, and suggesting that the result would be a constellation of symptoms consisting of restlessness, depression, trouble concentrating, impatience or irritability, listlessness, decreased motivation, and a loss of sense of meaning in life. And I'm very curious as to what this audience would think of this concept. So when at the end of my thought pattern, I said, okay, well, so what do we do about it? And part of it, and we can talk about that as well, is actually grieving something that we've lost. We've lost something, and it happens so suddenly. We've lost the old way of doing self. We lost the old normal. So just allowing yourself to say, well, this is a loss. This is not pleasant, and this is by no means pleasant. And what am I letting go of today? And then being kind to yourself if you feel anxious, and forgive yourself for kind of struggling with this uncertainty. But yeah, I'm certainly very interested into hearing what people say about my idea of burn-in or cabin fever, which is a known term.
So please do comment in the comment box. Do tell Dr. Stoffel what you think about that, about the term specifically. I see here, and I obviously with my mother, I'm bringing hers up here. We take a fast walk around our house at least 10 times in the morning and before breakfast. And they normally post it onto the WhatsApp group and a picture where they're walking around the house. A lot of people doing that on social media as well, going onto Instagram and Facebook. Natalie Barrow that's joining us, also a frequent poster on the activities she does in terms of cycling. And then we've got a longer one here from Belinda, and I'm going to read this one out. Let me just get it up onto the screen. The hardest part of working from home is that I sit down at the start of my day and I get down to business, but I neglect to take those strolls to the copier, making a cup of coffee, or chatting to someone. Now, I don't take a formal lunch hour, but will bring it back to my desk and carry on. I feel an urgency to deliver the same high standard of work I do at the office. I know this is part to do fearing of loss of my job and so forth.
That actually makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure, Belinda, there are a lot of people out there that's going to relate with what you just said. And I think what's important here is to be mindful of just that, just the realization that I'm doing things differently. And in as much as I'm caught into a new way of doing things that actually can be to some extent detrimental to my mental health, and it's making me anxious, stopping for a moment and say, okay, well, is this what I've been doing? What have I been doing? Write down I find writing down, that's how my brain works. It helps me to consider all the possibilities, and it helps me to tell me where I am at the moment. So write down what your current pattern of behavior is and your work day, and then asking yourself, okay, but is there an alternative? Is there a different way of doing things, remaining as productive as you used to be, but again, just being kinder to ourselves. We're I think, a generation of very, very hard workers, and I'm going to make the assumption, and I don't think it's wrong, to think that the people on this forum are by nature a little bit perfectionistic, and maybe that's my projection onto everybody, but also hard workers. And we need to look after ourselves, and this is an opportunity to question everything that we're doing and how we're doing it. And again, I don't want to talk too much, but from the reading I've been doing, a lot of companies are also rethinking the way that they're doing things, and obviously remote working is going to be a much bigger part of our lives in future. So we might as well start thinking about it now and how we're going to do it in future.
And how you want to adjust going forward. For those who's joining us at the moment, we're talking to Dr. Stoffel. I have posted all his contact information in the comment section already. We'll be able to get hold of him, and we'll go through to even his LinkedIn profile, so you can add him onto that and get more advice. That part of Belinda also ties into, we're all insecure for what our future holds. How should people deal with the uncertainty? I would think, Doctor.
When I actually read up on uncertainty. I'm a huge fan of making lists. Belinda, I'm happy to hear that. I went and I read up on uncertainty today, and at my age, I might think that I can't be surprised anymore, and then every now and then you learn something about yourself and you realize that you can still be surprised. And I was surprised at the fact that life actually has always been uncertain. COVID-19 has come and shattered everything, shattered, that's the word I'm looking for, everything familiar about the 21st century. It's a global catastrophe, and it's our tragedy of our, my specific age group. I would say it's the biggest tragedy that has befallen mankind. But the bottom line is no one is immune to uncertainty. Even under normal circumstances, that was my surprise today. I realized that, but life has always been uncertain. Your health, relationships, employment, finances. And every day we make decisions, and we're not necessarily exactly sure what the outcome is going to be, because we can't see into the future. So living with uncertainty actually didn't start now. We've been living with uncertainty all our lives. So the advice that I read up on and that I would like to share with people is, firstly, know your tolerance level. You get people who are very tolerant of ambiguous situations. They don't find novel, unpredictable situations scary, whereas you get the people with a low tolerance for that. They like routines, they like order, they like the familiar. And if you realize that this makes you very anxious, talk to someone, express your fears and anxiety to someone who you think has a high tolerance for this, and ask them to teach you maybe something of the way that they think, and try and adapt the way that you think about uncertainty. But the bottom line is, for me as an anxiety disorder, somebody who suffers from an anxiety disorder, who tends to have been living in the future from my teenage years, it was a surprise to me to realize actually today that life has always been uncertain, and I've just been working very hard to create certainty. But the bottom line is it's not certain. Yeah. And then there's so much to feel anxious about. So it's it's necessary to be specific about what's your uncertainty. The person who's lost their job, the entrepreneurs whose business hangs in the air, the student who's uncertain about what the future is going to be in terms of education. That's all different types of uncertainty. So again, Belinda, make your list. It helps me as well. And tell yourself what is your specific uncertainty. And then realizing that uncertainty is thinking about the future, whether it's tomorrow or a year from now, but it's always there. So write down your worries and make your uncertainty more specific for yourself to make it more manageable yourself. And then living in the present, again, that's where I find mindfulness being quite useful, where it taught me to come back to the present moment, to be aware of all my rushing thoughts and going all over the place, to bring myself back to the present moment, to my current situation, and just being kind and gently telling myself, okay, I can't control the future. There's no way of controlling the future. There's no way of predicting the future. Nobody can, at the moment, predict the outcome of all of this. And then lastly, say again?
I said I'm just dealing with the boss.
Okay, and then lastly, focusing on resilience. We are remarkably resilient as humans, and I think we can take some comfort in that. Each one of us has faced difficulties in the past, personal loss, disappointment, failure, and we survived. So the same goes for this pandemic. I'm sure a lot of us will come back out on the other side, and it would have been terrible, but we will have survived. So I would suggest to people, think back of the moments that you had difficult times, and looking at the way that you overcame that, and then using the same measures to deal with the current uncertainty. So uncertainty, my surprise for today was actually that uncertainty is something that has been part of my life for a very long time, and I just didn't realize it. And
it's nice to hear from you as well how people can deal with it. If they'd like to get a hold of you, I'm looking at your contact information here. I just want to make sure, is it IO at the end?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure about it.
.io. Yes, it's right. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to display it on the screen. I have posted it in the comment section as well if you want to get a hold of Dr. Stoffel. That is the web address that's coming through there. So it's IO at the end. Then Dr. Stoff at mindfulrevolution.io as well. And then the LinkedIn address if you want to add Dr. Stoffel to that as well. Just a few last questions before we do end of today's session on people that did answer you. Nika, it said, I love the term burn in. It makes a lot of sense as we are locked in at home and may be experiencing emotional distress and could mimic the symptoms people with burnout. Then also Christine is saying here, burn in developing ourselves into new ways for coping, self-development in itself. Suzette Mayer, burn in mindful thinking and self-care, looking out for each other in this present lockdown situation. Some nice comments coming through there specifically. And
thank you for everybody.
If I haven't touched on everybody's comments today, I do thank you for it, and thanks so much for watching. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here, we will have a session with a different speaker at 3 o'clock on the Oracle Media Facebook page. Please do comment in the section before we leave today. I'd love to know some feedback on you, what you've taken away from this session with Dr. Stoffel. We'd like to know, what did you take away? I can see quite a few people joining us. Currently, there is just over 40 people that's still live with us. I'd love to know, what are you taking away from the session with Dr. Stoffel today? Just comment section, and it could be a one-liner, it could be long, it doesn't matter. Tell us, what are you taking away from this session today as well. Vahalem saying, thank you, Neil and Dr. Stoffel. This was very informative.
Thank you, Vahalem.
Also, quite interesting with Suzette, she's got a wonderful spa in Addo and Kirkwood, and I think, also after the lockdown, that is the type of things people will be looking at to try and get away, to try and get some balance in their life, and get away from the anxiety and stress that they endured during the lockdown period in itself. Dr. Stoffel, any last words on the value of remaining hopeful in spite of what the world is going through at present?
Well, as a psychiatrist, I see part of my responsibility is actually to give people hope, and not unrealistic hope, but we have to have hope to create a better future for ourselves, and also remember that hope impacts the people around us. So we're at home. There are spouses at home. There are children at home, and we need to convince the people around us that there's actually that we're able to face these challenges, that we're able to think creatively about these challenges, and that we're believing in a hopeful yet feasible vision of the future. And remember that hope is contagious. It inspires others to do the same. So in times of crisis, it's especially hopeful that it's especially important that people remain hopeful, because it's good for your mental and your physical health as well. And I know it's a difficult time, and I'm experiencing it myself, but I want to encourage people to actually just to stay helpful and to stay hopeful about the future.
So anybody would like to get a hold of Dr. Stoffel, please do so. I have commented in the comment box with his information. It's also displaying on the screen at the moment. You're more than welcome to get a hold of him. I'll probably say if you can't take the web address or the email address down, then obviously on LinkedIn, very easy to find Dr. Stoffel with regards to that. And in the link, if you do need any assistance from Dr. Stoffel, you're more than welcome to actually inbox the Oracle Media Facebook page, and we will put you in touch as well. Doctor, thank you so much.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for the opportunity.
We've tried to cover a lot in the last 50 minutes, but there's so much more to talk about. So many people that will need assistance and help going forward. And I'm sure you've also got your hands full during this lockdown period assisting people.
Thank you, Neil. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And thank you for everybody for the comments.
So I'll see you again on this coming Friday at 3 o'clock with Tanya Kuhn talking all the legal things as one of our celebrity attorneys in South Africa. And then next week, Monday, talking to myself on marketing and social media specifically. So I'll see you this coming Friday with Tanya Kuhn right here at 3 o'clock on the Oracle Media Facebook page. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us today. And Dr. Stoffel, have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.